Yo YouTube, Brewski here. So if you spent any amount of time on social media, Facebook, Reddit, other YouTube channels, whatever, there are a lot of questions that come up in the tabletop hobby, and I see a lot of them on a repetitive basis. So I know some of the guys watching this channel are newer to the hobby. I'm just going to go through rapid fire a number of questions that I've seen or been asked myself and go over my answers, how I handle these things, what I use, those kind of things. So let's jump into it. But before we get too far, if you guys enjoy these kind of videos, if you want to see content like this, please give a like, subscribe, and in the comments, if you have other questions, leave those for me, because I'm going to keep doing these over time, and I'll want to go over other questions. So again, comments, questions, yours, I want to answer. First thing I see is, what kind of brush should I be using for my miniatures, okay? This is going to come down to your preferences. I myself prefer Reaper miniatures. This is very, very, very tiny print. I have no idea how well you're going to be able to see it or not, but they make paints, they make all kinds of minis for many different types of uses, and they make brushes. These have been my favorite so far. I've used Citadel, I've used basic dollar store brand, I've used cheap stuff. For miniatures, I prefer Reaper. Another one that I found that I like, I got from Blick Art. It's a kind of limited supply chain. It's like a very high-end Michaels or Hobby Lobby, but I like these little guys. They're synthetics. Princeton Art and Brush Company. And I have a 0, a 2, and a 0.05 on these. Those are the three sizes you really want. Something like a 2, a 0, and 0/5, a 0.5, whatever it is. Those, I think, are the three you basically need for basic miniatures. You can get bigger, you can get smaller. That's what you kind of need. So that's what I use for brushes. Okay, what do I use for paints? What should someone start with paints? What are the first miniature paint brands that someone should get? Most people, especially if you're in the UK or if you're playing Warhammer, are going to start out with Citadel. Now, Citadel is a good brand. They make a lot of different paints, a lot of different shades. They are very good. My problem with them is that they come in pots like this that can dry out really, really easily. And they typically tend to be overpriced for the competition or what you're going to be buying elsewhere. They're good paint. I can't really argue at that point, but I much prefer stuff that you can get in dropper bottles, and I like things where there's a little bit more bang for the buck dollar-wise. So I've really come to love Reaper miniatures, and they make a couple different types. These are the Master Series paints here. They make a couple to go with certain games. They have something with Pathfinder that they've actually licensed certain colors. They have a Core Series and a Master Series. They sell colors in triads, so you have a base color, a mid-tone, and a highlight. Very easy, no-brainer in terms of looking for a color and trying to find something. Another one I like is Army Painter. Some people don't like these. They say the consistency is not great. I've never had an issue with that. So realistically, these are the ones I'd go with, and they're about half the price of Citadel. Other good ones are Vallejo. AK makes some good ones. You can't go wrong with those. But I prefer droppers just because you're not wasting so much paint, and I find these don't dry out. I've never had one of these just go to solid crud on me. But I have many, many Citadel pots that have dried up and just are not useful anymore. So that's what I would use for starters. What basic hobby supplies do you need for building models? Okay, miniatures, you're going to need a good set of hobby nippers. Okay, you're going to want files, sanding sticks, nail files, whatever it is, something to sand things down with. I prefer the heavier duty ones. You're going to need some kind of a hobby knife. This is just X-Acto brand, works very, very well. You're going to need glue, plastic and super. I don't have those right in front of me right now, but super glue, I've come to love Bob Smith, I think it is, Bob Smith Industries. And for regular plastic glue, I use Tamiya. They're a pretty common brand. You can find them on Amazon. Most hobby stores will have this. Tester has made a really good one, but it's very thick. It comes in a tube. It's not really in a bottle or anything. Very thick, very globby. Doesn't preserve detail on models very well, I found. I started off with that. Oh well, it does the job. It definitely bonds well, but it's really messy, so I wouldn't recommend it. Get something thinner, get something liquid, you're going to enjoy it. What would I use for priming and painting, and what would I use to hold the models? Paint-wise, I've really come to love Army Painter. I have a theory with spray primers. I've used basic spray primer, like this stuff you can get at a craft store or a dollar store, or even like hardware stores like Home Depot. And I find that the texture it leaves on the model and the consistency is not always good. Sometimes it has a tendency to thicken up and remove detail from the model. If you buy miniature brand paint like this, Army Painter, Citadel is not bad. I've used them before. If you buy those and you follow the directions and use them properly, I find you get a better result than if you do with dollar store primer or anything else. That is totally fine for terrain, for scenery, for anything else you're doing. Maybe even vehicles if you don't worry too much about detail. But for miniatures, especially with more detail, use a good hobby brand spray paint, okay? What you hold them with, I'm gonna save you guys a lot of money. Stay away from these things that are like $30 and have all these clip spaces. Just forget it, okay? Go to a paint store or a hardware store, get yourself a paint stick, okay? This is a Home Depot paint stick, okay? The guy threw this in for free. It's a good, I don't know, 2.5 feet long, something like that. And you can see I've got a bunch of spots where I've primed on this. Get yourself blue tack. This is just sticky tack. You can just rip it off. It's reusable, resealable, whatever. Put that underneath your models and stick it on here. You got a good grip to hold it out and then spray from a distance. You really can't go wrong. That is the cheapest, best way to go about that, in my opinion. My brushes are getting into bad shape. My brushes don't hold a point. My brushes are dirty. They're getting really damaged. What do I use to restore them? Come on, guys. Masters brush cleaner and preserver. This is a small one, but I really have not used this up yet, and I've been using this one for a good 6 months. It really does give you a little more life and a little more use out of your brushes. This cost me all of $8. Very well worth the price. I highly recommend that. Here's a good one. If you have bases, like flying type bases where you have clear plastic, and then you have a miniature that goes on top. This is a Reaper Miniatures Cav Strike Ops tank. This base is in 2 pieces. The question, what do you use to glue clear plastic? Mind blown, okay? PVA. Super glue will cloud this up. So if you're going to cover it over and base it, you really don't have anything to go wrong with that. But if you are going to keep it just like this and you want it to be see-through, this, guys, this is nothing but Elmer's, okay? And this does not move. I've had no issue with it. This isn't a very heavy model. It's just, you know, basic Reaper plastic, but no issue with it. It holds just fine. And it's not cloudy. It's not all messed up. So, white PVA. I recommend their glue wall. You want to get a PVA that's meant for a lot of different things. School glue, I find, is a little bit weaker, but this works just dandy. If you use anything with some kind of a slotted base, in other words, you have the base, you have the miniature standing on top of it, and it's got a slot, either to take a piece of the model into it, or it just comes that way or whatever. How do you fill that in? What do you use that works fast? I've shown this in a couple other videos. I recommend some kind of quick dry spackle. This is DAP Drydex. And this cost me all of $5 on Amazon, and I've nowhere near run out on this, okay? This kind color changes. This is the type of stuff you would fix drywall with. And all you do is spread this along the inside of the base and the slot. You can put it around the part of your miniature that sticks in, and you just use something to smooth it down, like a scraping tool or a molding tool. You just flatten it out. It takes maybe, depending on how much you're using, 10 or 15 minutes to dry. What I wouldn't do with it is try to do something like textured rolling pin type bases. That will not hold. I've tried that. It breaks way too easily. It just does not hold. But if you're just filling in the slot so you can cover over the basing and you have a level base, this is an absolute godsend. It dries quick, it holds, it can be painted, sanded, glued over, sealed in. No problem with it, and it's cheap as hell. So that's an absolute go-to in my book. Lighting effects. What is a simple way you can use, what can you use to get simple lighting effects on your terrain or on your board, or to make rec markers or anything like that? These cheap little Amazon tea lights. I've gotten these in blue and green. I've got a couple kicking around from the Halloween store in like a regular orange candle type color. I got a box off Amazon. Literally, this brand is Lanker. Just search that on Amazon. And you get a box full of these lights. This cost me all of $12 for like 20 lights plus batteries. They're cheap, they're expendable, they're replaceable, they're bright, they work pretty well. They have a flicker function, so I know some guys will want to make custom LED rigs. If you have time for that, great. If you're just starting out and you want simple markers, you don't want to do something where you have like one of these more waterproof color change jobs, this works fine. Last question I think I'm going to get to for the evening. Someone asked about miniature storage. What do I do to hold my miniatures? Do I have any kind of display cases? This is my personal thing. I don't display my models. Space is at a premium. I don't just have a lot of time to sit there and look at them. It's just kind of not worth my while. As for what I do, this is going to make some people cringe. You want to get one of these. go to a storage store or go to a hardware store and get a little toolbox. Okay, I've had this probably close on 10 years. Cost me maybe 10, 12 bucks at the time. Okay, I have my entire Raven Guard Space Marines army in here. Now that's probably 12 to 1500 points worth of models, and it is not pretty. Okay, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a guided tour right now, so bear with me here and try not to cringe too badly. So usually with these, what you'll get is some kind of a removable tray, and I literally just have this right now chock full of my models. You can kind of see how it is. There's no padding, there's no nothing. I treat my models like hell. I don't really care. I very rarely break anything or have to touch them up. I'm not throwing this around. I don't throw it at my opponents when I get a bad dice roll. That's just kind of how I go. One thing I do, though, that makes this a lot better and a lot more durable, and I don't know how well you're going to see this, there's a lot of models that have dumped into the bottom here, but I use this plastic mat type stuff. I use this plastic mat stuff you see up the side. I just glued that along the bottom and the sides, and it's just rubber grip mat. That's all it is. And what that does is it keeps your models from bouncing into the side of the container, number one. Number two, it's soft. It gives some cushion and some padding so they don't get all wrecked up. And you can even, if you're clever, I did this once, I didn't do it in this box, but you can put in like multiple sections so that it can hold something the size of a vehicle and not really give it a lot of wiggle room, or it can hold something bigger, or you can put multiple models into a position or into a space like that. You can do so many things storage-wise really cheap. I could spend a whole video on that by itself, but just to answer you, that I have always used that. I am not spending $50, $60, $80, $100 on miniature transport. I'm not a Golden Demon guy. If you've watched my channel for any length of time, you know my emphasis is on getting models onto the table and playing games and enjoying yourself and using an economy of time to do all that. And that will work just fine, and you will still have another $40 or $50 you would have spent on some Citadel case or some professional miniature storage for paints, for models, for rules, for anything else you need to actually get gaming, or gas to get there. It's a no-brainer. So that's what I do. I hope that helps. Anyway, guys, that is my frequently asked questions number one. I, again, look forward to other questions from you. If there's things you have trouble with, things you want to see, things you don't know how to do, please leave a comment below with what you want to see or what you want to ask me. I will happily take them up in my next video. Again, like, subscribe if you want to see more content, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay savage.